Okay, this next one is a story of openings redemption. And redemption in general, I felt it was a good game overall to choose. Um, in the time period, also still, we're in 2005, there were not too many bright stars of scholastic chess where I grew up, Alabama. And the top two players by far were myself and Keenan Olson. And we'd played numerous times, and he had had the better of our overall score, staying slightly stronger for most of it, and he won pretty much all the key games. And this game, we were playing at the state championship, and this was a critical game. And I knew the opening that he played and had prepared specifically to play against him. This is a huge change from the previous two games that you saw that I was just kind of playing openings. I wasn't playing for a specific motive, an idea. Here, I wanted to play an aggressive line and go after my opponent. And I chose an aggressive line. So, much like the previous game, it's an open Sicilian, and we get right into the Najdorf. And this time, went for a far more aggressive variation compared to the classical bishop e2. And I was 100 points stronger at this point, at roughly 1700 plus. And now this was a theoretical duel. My opponent goes e6, and I show I am not afraid at all to go into poison pawn theory in the Najdorf with my move order with f4. And the poison pawn being queen b6, taken on b2. And I've always been partial to the e5 lines. And if you're going to play this line for white, for either color, you need to know the theory extremely deeply and have great tactical sense to play. So it requires a lot of work over the board to play this accurately, and the positions are just nasty and fun. So my opponent plays the solid bishop e7, and after queen f3, castles. And already this feels like it lacks some flexibility for black, and it's painted a target that I'm going to be able to attack. Sometimes you want to play all the waiting moves first. Queen c7, knight bd7, b5, bishop b7 before committing, because in some variations in the Najdorf, the king even castles queenside. So I felt like black could have done better and say, okay, let's fight it out. Opposite side castling. And on queen c7, this is the first time I would like for you to pause the video and try to come up with a constructive plan for white here. What would you play and why? Right? Hopefully you pause the video, and you have to ask in these situations, on opposite side castling, it's typically a race situation. Who can crack open the other player's position first? And the center seems to be at a standoff, a stalemate, if you will. I'm not pressing the pawns on the queen side, so I need to start going after his king directly. And I start with this move g4, signifying that when my bishop moves, I am going to throw it all at you. My opponent logically starts his own initiative on the opposite wing, and now, in order to not waste any time, I capture on f6. And here, my opponent played a move which is natural in Sicilians, but he had a better option. So, g takes f6 is what he played in the game. And it's a common move in the structure, but the king is normally on e8 when that happens. And here it's a better option of simply capturing the bishop because we end up in this type of line where it should lead to dynamic equality. We still have all the dynamics of the position, but it's a game. Definitely bishop takes f6 should have been considered. Once g takes f6 is played, I remembered seeing a game like this and played f5 to secure the structure. And this was muscle memory. Now, keep in mind, this next move, knight c6, I thought that he should retain the knight, but this move, knight d7, fails here. See if you can figure out why. Good time to pause the video. All right. F takes e6. In-between move. Another in-between move. And queen g3, where black's king is a little bit more open. Our knights are still excellent. We're looking at dropping into d5. This just isn't going to do it. So we can understand my opponent playing knight c6 in the game. Not wanting to lose time, I capture, and bishop d3, a multi-purpose move, which is excellent. It adds an extra defender to c2 in case the c3 knight is ever required to move due to b4. And it is also x-raying towards the black king. So king g7 is played, and my entire chess playing career has been plagued with never doing enough tactical research, but this is probably a strength measure because I definitely consider the move suggested by the engine here. What would you play with white? Another good time to pause. Okay. I'll give you credit. In the main game, I played h4, but g5 wins on the spot, as the attack is simply too strong. For instance, if takes, now h4, where we are just prying this position open with a crowbar, h takes, and you can check me, and you can try to run, but f6 is a wonderful deflection. e5, the king's flavor's all sealed in. We're hitting h7. We have the discovery with our queen hitting a8. And now bishop takes h7, and the attack is continuing. Every white piece is just monstrous, and black is just struggling to stay alive, and he will not. So, what can be said? But after king g7, h4, and it mirrors the same kind of game. g5 could be played again. It's a transposition. And I miss it and go queen e3 to prepare g5 even more than it already needed to be prepared for the win. And this blows the edge because black should be okay. Queen c5. Now, I did understand that this is an attack, so no. Knight e2. Getting the knight. Maybe he's coming to help on the king side. And after king h8, black should be okay in this very dynamic position. But my opponent went for e5, and now this is starting to justify my play a bit more. The light square bishop for black isn't going to be, an active participant, because after knight g3, we're getting these aggressive ideas of knight h5 coming in. Pawn takes. King f8 trying to run. And we want to be careful here because bishop takes g5 could be a day ruiner. So f6. Takes. Now rook takes h7. Always nice to threaten back rank things. King e8. Now, how would you play with white here? Because it would be very easy to simply check on the back rank and trade rooks and then say win the a pawn with bishop takes a6. But you should sense that there's got to be more here. Pause your video if you'd like to try to figure it out. Okay, so an excellent practical move here is rook g7. It says if you capture, there's really not going to be an easy way to stop the newly minted g-pawn from promoting. So rook h3, and now there are a number of strong moves here, but the absolute strongest, which I did not consider in the game, was bishop c4, and this is just crushing. Whereas queen takes c4, rook g8, queen takes d6. So bishop c4 is just crazy strong there and breaks his back. But I went with queen g5 with the idea of being completely flexible and understanding the back rank threats. My opponent plays rook h8. Now, what would you do with white here? This is one of the last pauses we have of the video. Take your time. All right, so in this one, breaks his back with rook takes f7, and he actually resigned here as the last move of the game. So we have a couple of different lines. For instance, if king takes, check, and regardless of the square that his king moves to, we have queen e7 mate. The other line is king d8 trying to run, but queen g7 is devastating, hitting the bishop and the rook on h8. And after f7, this seems more than enough, as queen takes rook ends with pawn takes rook, promotion to queen, and black will have had enough in that position, with mate soon to follow. Notice the flow of this game compared to the previous two. Aggression, tactics, calculation, good opening preparation. This game was the start of a spark in my play that showed I could actually have some talent for this game if I continued to work. And it never feels better winning a game than beating someone who has consistently bested you in the past. And this is a game that truly proud of from the preparation standpoint and overcoming that mental block. Because when somebody has your number, it's really hard to beat them. There's a well-known matchup in chess history between titans. When you look at the record between Victor Korchnoi and Mikhail Tal, Tal struggled with Korchnoi. I mean, it was a ridiculous record where I'm not even sure if Tal ever even won a game off of Korchnoi. It was a very one-sided affair. And say, for instance, another comparison, looking at the games and overall record between Kasparov and Shirov, that was another situation where Shirov came close many times, but I do not believe he ever had a win in a major tournament game versus Kasparov. Sometimes a guy just has your number. So if you can ever get one over on him, it's definitely going to be a good day.